The Dodgers were furious with Scott's behavior. Manager Roberts rushed into the locker room with a red face and punished Scott with a wide berth. Shohei Ohtani's reaction was a national sensation. For the MLB Los Angeles Dodgers, that day's game was truly a nightmare. Starting pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto shone as brightly as he could have, dominating the stadium. If he had pitched 8 2/3 innings, struck out 0 batters, and got just 1 out on a hit by pitch, he would have achieved a historic moment in which he would become the first Japanese player to achieve a major league hit rally. The spectators watched with bated breath, sharing the same tension and anticipation as the fans in the stands. It was cruel. In the 9th inning, with 2 outs and no outs, Holliday stepped up to the plate and swung at a cutout pitch from the defense with the count at 1, and the ball was sucked into the stands. The dream of a no-hitter collapsed in an instant, and a loud murmur of mixed surprise and surprise spread from the stands. Yamamoto left the mound with a small smile on his face, trying to hide his frustration, but the sight of the small figure drifting from his back was enough to make anyone's heart ache. But the real tragedy began here. Trinity and Tanner Scott, who had been entrusted with Yamamoto's place, found one batter after another and allowed consecutive hits and walks. The 3-run lead quickly evaporated, and in the end, Rivera threw a farewell pitch to center field, and the Dodgers suffered a 3-4 comeback loss. Just a few minutes earlier, the team had been filled with expectations of a historic victory, but now they had an unbelievable ending, extending their losing streak to 5. Fans and the media were quick to say that this collapse was a repeat of a nightmare they had never seen before. Criticism focused on the fragility of the bullpen that had made Yamamoto's Chikarishima useless, and the bench's judgment in deciding the loss. A game that should have been memorable in both the record books and in the memories changed overnight from a historic victory to a historic defeat, casting a dark shadow over the Dodgers' season. Orel Hershiser, the legendary pitcher for the Dodgers who set an MLB record of 59 consecutive scoreless innings in 1988, appeared in an interview with Sportsnet and seemed deeply shocked by the comeback. Even he, who has seen many games as a veteran commentator, said he was speechless at the call. I have been following both MLB and NPB for a long time, but in my 60-plus years, this is the first time I have seen a scene like this. With 2 outs in the 9th inning and no batters, and a 3-run lead, this is a situation where normally no one would doubt victory. But then they give up 4 runs in one go and lose in a walk-off. I have experienced countless come-from-behind losses, but I have never seen anything as dramatic and tragic as this. The Dodgers' dream of a World Series will be nothing more than a fantasy if things continue as they are, he said with a stern expression. At the same time, his words about Yamamoto Yoshinobu were filled with deep reasoning and unstinting praise. Hershiser quietly reflected. Sometimes in baseball, unjust outcomes occur, but this time it was all too cruel. The more Yamamoto pitched, the better he got, and even in the 9th inning, he kept his composure and kept racking up strikeouts. I myself believed that he would definitely get that last batter out. However, when I watched the video again, the last ball was just a little high. That said, I felt rather relieved when I saw Yamamoto smiling as he left the mound. His smile spoke of the determination and confidence in the future that lay behind his frustration. I truly believe that the day will come when he will achieve another great record. The atmosphere in the Vox Sports studio that night was explosive. Immediately after the Dodgers suffered an unbelievable come-from-behind loss, David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez appeared on the show. The two legends did not hide their anger. The first to cut his lip was Ortiz, who had made many memorable appearances with the Boston Red Sox. With a grim expression, he said, "I can't understand why they would bring in Tanner Scott at that moment when they were down by 3 runs going into the 9th inning. They should have made a more reliable move to protect Yamamoto's victory. This is not the fault of the individual pitcher, but the fault of the manager who chose the tactics. It was that decision that stole the victory. Quote, then Rodriguez, who was sitting next to him, quickly chimed in. He shook his head and continued in a tone of resignation. The moment Scott took the mound, many people must have had a bad feeling. And the result was as expected. He has now ruined Yamamoto's victory for the fourth time. With neither Tryon nor Scott, the Dodgers bullpen has no reliable closer. This fact is too serious. Ortiz slammed his fist on the table as if he couldn't bear it and concluded in a loud voice. Yamamoto missed a no-hitter, but it was still a winnable game. It was clearly a mistake to lose it. To be honest, I don't think this team can win big games under manager Roberts. Today's game call was one of the worst I've seen in MLB. The atmosphere in the Dawes clubhouse after the game was completely different from usual. Manager Roberts, who usually has a calm and composed expression, couldn't hide his anger and raised his voice. In front of him was Tanner Scott, the left-handed reliever who had once again caused the team to miss out on victory. According to sources, Scott avoided admitting responsibility in front of the press, instead saying that the momentum had been lost with a ninth-inning home run, and making remarks that seemed to overshadow Yamamoto's power play. Furthermore, the day before, he had made blatant comments about Shohei Ohtani's questionable batting, and discontent within the team had already been building. At that moment, manager Roberts' patience reached its limit. It is testified that he walked up to Scott, grabbed him by the collar, and yelled at him, "This is the second time. If you're not going to take responsibility, then shut up. Otherwise, you'll just keep sitting on the bench." Quote, the surrounding staff were shocked and speechless. It was the first time that manager Roberts, who usually scolds his players and never evades public anger, had been forced to leave the game in such a violent manner. He was momentarily speechless, glared back at Scott for a while, and then replied in a low voice, "I understand." And then, having left the clubhouse with a sullen expression, manager Dave Roberts appeared at the post-game press conference with a calm expression, in stark contrast to the expression on his face that had been weighing on his mind earlier. But his words were laced with a sense of sternness and responsibility. The manager began calmly, saying, "I'm not going to let one pitcher be the sole culprit today." But Scott needed more composure and assertiveness. Every pitch in that situation had a major impact on the flow of the game. Quote, as tension filled the air in the press conference, Roberts continued, "It's easy to attack him, but we can't forget our responsibility as a team. The entire bullpen was exhausted, and our other options were limited. In that situation, I believed in Scott and sent him out. Unfortunately, the results weren't what they were, but that's reality." And finally, Roberts made a big decision. Scott will spend the next 2 weeks in the minors recuperating. I want him to regain his rhythm and confidence there and come back stronger. He still has potential, and he's the right fit for Dawes. I have every confidence that he can bounce back. Quote, Shohei Ohtani's words in the post-game interview were quiet but filled with determination and candor. He certainly contributed to the team by hitting a right fielder early in the inning and then scoring the first run in the third inning. However, Ohtani spoke frankly about the fact that his name was being brought up in discussions about responsibility for the previous day's game call. To be honest, I don't like the idea of my name being brought up. Everyone should be responsible for their own role, and it's not fair to put the blame on someone else. I've always played under a lot of pressure, and I think I'm used to it. But that doesn't mean I should be blamed for my failures. With that statement, Ohtani moved the conversation to the decisions made by Tanner Scott and manager Scott. I respect manager Roberts' decision. I think Scott needs some time to step back and reflect. I understand that he's being harshly criticized, but at the same time, I believe he hasn't lost his edge. Otani also added some words about his own role. When he returns to the mound, I'll be there to support him. For Otani, it's not just technique that's important, but also his mindset. If I can help in any way by sharing what I've been through, I want to do everything I can. The Dodgers need everyone's help, and I'll do everything I can as a teammate to make that happen. Major American media outlets have all covered Shohei Ohtani, who's shown even amid the tragic end of the come-from-behind loss. In its lead